with B-Bad and Brandon.
But what we like to do, my friend, first off, obviously appreciative you coming on. It's a Sunday night over there in the lovely UK, but we do normally kick off with a question so the world can know who you are, and if they don't, they should know who you are off this. And that is the question of you have 21 words and sounds to tell us who you are and what you do.
Yeah, so I'm Harrison. I work with MST Systems as the powerlifting and performance coach. So I do more like the powerlifting and the hormones, PEDs kind of consultation side of things. So
Yep,
I think that was in 21 words. I'm not sure. I think
yep, I like it. I like it. That lands. I mean, the exciting thing for me is I think we may have, after you, we should have had all of you boys on from MST. We're trying to keep up with the exponential growth of the amazing company
yeah,
that's there.
yeah, definitely. It's really going fast at the moment. Really starting to take off, which is good. So yeah, we're kind of like trying to cover all the areas basically. So obviously Shane running ship, Flash doing
Yep,
all the lightweight stuff. Curtis with his,
yep,
you've had Curtis on himself psychology side.
yep, yep.
Yeah, just taking on more coaches at the moment. Yeah, so really starting to grow.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the thing that I love, like, as you guys as a business, like, before we even touch on you, my friend, is that like you guys are literally covering everything
Yeah,
in the whole
definitely. Yeah,
spaces,
yeah.
which is just unreal to see.
Yeah, like I said, yeah, really starting to like branch out. Like even over the last like couple of months, like Shane's been trying to get out to all the big shows and really just starting to branch out a lot more. Like, it's always been kind of
Yep,
we've always like MSC has always kind of coached a lot of the elite level athletes, but it's just kind of getting out there more as well. Like there's No to America recently, Arnold's in the UK. He's
yep,
been at the lightweight shows the last 3 weekends in a row, just supporting the athletes out
yep,
there. And yeah, it's really starting to just
yep.
put your name out there a lot more.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's really exciting to see. I mean, Flash, unreal legend. He was helping one of my mates over here, Reed Emery, who absolutely was crushing powerlifting last year and the year before.
Yeah, I really like Reed.
I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
and the thing I like, because I had the privilege, like, he'd come down in the gym because he lived fucking miles away from anywhere in a shed. And he'd drive 2.5 hours to come and train with us. So I got to see a little bit of what was done and programmed, and always used to chat with Reed about the stuff that Flash would do it. And you guys just do it differently too, which I think was really cool.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's like a lot of especially powerlifting, well, even with strongman, but powerlifting, there's a lot of like protocols that are in place that not many
Yep,
powerlifters will have done before. Actually, is it Brisbane?
yep,
Brisbane, you're based.
yeah. I'm in Brisbane. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, because I've got a client in Brisbane as well who's looking to get into his first powerlifting
Oh,
competition.
join
So
us.
I might chat to you after about it because we've been discussing like looking at he trains. I don't know exactly the gym he trains at, but it's not fully kitted out for powerlifting. It's a good gym, but
Yep,
you might have a
yep.
chat with you and send him your way if he's close by, just to get a
Yeah,
more
yeah.
powerlifting
Please,
specific gym.
please. Yeah, and that's, I mean, down here in Brizzy, there's some great little powerlifting clubs and big ones kicking around, which is rad. I also run some of the comps down here as well, so
Yeah,
if
I've
you're
seen.
scared
Yeah,
to
yeah.
compete,
So
you can go
yeah,
and lift.
I'll have a chat with him and chat with you after if it's close by and he's interested in having a journey over.
Yeah,
I'll send him over.
absolutely.
So yeah, he wants to get into
Now,
competition
performance,
this year.
sick. I was going to say, now, performance coach. Now, like you said, talking about the space of PEDs for hormone use and stuff like that, that's definitely what I would consider, at least publicly, it's a new role that's kind of popping up out there
Yeah, yeah,
in this space. That it's probably it's existed. There's always been kind of a few people that have done it, so it's definitely a lot more growth. You're seeing a lot more people talk about it openly, which is super exciting. And now it's even a business aspect, which just sort of shows how seriously people are sort of taking that stuff if they are going to go down that path. How did you get into something like that?
kind of fell into it really. Like I started
Yep.
like the whole. So in terms of PDs and my own usage, it was started about
Yep.
four. Well, it started like 2016, but it was back then. Like there was not really like nowhere near the information there was now, and I was kind
Mm.
of put off doing it long term purely from a health perspective. Like there
Yep.
wasn't really much information out there, and then when I kind of came, it started with me when I was like 30 years old. I did a blood test, kind
Yep.
of just like a checkup. I wasn't taking anything at that point, and testosterone came back low and all this. So I went on TRT.
Mm.
and kind of wanted to kind of push more harm reduction use and kind of think more longevity and health risks and all this and that. And then
Yep.
the female stuff kind of came along with my fiance being in this kind of the same situation. She was into like a lot of hormone problems, and this was going back about 2 years now,
Yep.
2 or 3 years.
Yep.
And when I started looking at like what's out there for females and realized there really isn't that much in terms of how does a female approach like TRT and
Yep.
HRT and things like from a performance based aspect.
Mm.
And it kind of went down the rabbit hole of looking at kind of female PD usage because it kind of I kind of took a step back and you kind of look at how big like strongwoman's getting and female powerlifting's getting something like this really exponential growth and the
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
the level of strength females are showing now just kind of like really coming into its own and there's some like phenomenal
It's
feats of strength.
insanity.
Yeah, exactly. It's
Fucking
blowing up.
women getting stupid strong.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like even like this weekend at Goes Clash in America, like you see like Hunter Henderson like opening a squat on like 297 or whatever it was. Like it's insane. Like to ever think like
Fucking
females against that level. Yeah. So
stupid.
when I found that like there's a lot of female lifters who are going to be like looking at that now and that kind of level of
Yep.
attainability to get to that strength is that skill level
Mm.
is getting higher and higher. So I think like naturally, like no pun intended, a lot of them are going to be
Yep.
thinking in the back of the head like, what if I start taking PDs or how do I start taking
Yep.
PDs? So the stuff
Yep.
I'm putting out there isn't pushing it onto anyone. I'm not saying like here start
Yep.
taking PDs. Like the ebook I've just released over the weekend is
Yep.
more a resource for people to start asking the right questions of if they want to kind of go
Yep.
down that path. Instead of just listening
Yep.
to some guy at the gym be like, oh, here, take 10 milligrams of Anavar and off you go. It's like just giving them
Oh,
something.
mate.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like just giving them something to be like the questions they need to be thinking about for like in terms of fertility and viralization and that kind of path. So
Yep.
yeah, when I kind of like
Yep.
started getting into it and realized there is a kind of a big niche there and there's a lot of females who
Mm.
are using and like
Yep.
kind of give them some form of direction with it. So yeah, it kind of came about
Yep.
just looking at wanting to help my fiance with it and realizing no, there is like a big gap for helping female strength athletes as a whole as well.
Yep. Yeah, I think I like the thing you touched on, and we've had some guys and girls on here before that really nail home the fact it's people are going to take them, and that's their choice. It's great, but the space of harm reduction is so important once you jump in that space. And I would think, in my own experience, out there in the great world of powerlifting, at least, there's not a lot, there hasn't been enough conversation, and that conversation's only just starting to begin. And you're right, it'd be just, for lack of a better word, using girl as an example, girl at the gym, local lad, girl, just says, oh man, take some of these things, and
Yeah,
then
yeah,
they'll go, yeah, sure, I'll do that. And what do I do with them? They're like, this over this long, do that. And
yeah,
like, none of that is good advice
yeah,
at
exactly.
all.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of
Which
like
is just,
I kind of compare it to like when someone's looking for like a coach or like a nutritionist, like they'll do the due diligence to be like, oh, this guy knows what he's talking about, and this nutritionist is
yep,
really good. They've got all these results, and obviously you can't kind of do the same kind of level of due diligence with getting advice off someone for PD usage, but it's kind of like I'm trying
yep,
to want to kind of like have something out there just that they can kind of turn to as like a free resource to be like, oh, these are the questions. Like you
yep,
said, if they're going to use them, they're going to use them. It's just like making sure they
mm,
know what they're consenting to when they do start taking things like the risks they are putting
yeah,
themselves out. Because there is no going back. Like it's like even like with men, like some men will say like, oh, I'm just going to do one cycle, that's it, I'll be done. But they'll forever be chasing that high that they get off doing that one cycle, and it's never just going to be one cycle. Like
yep,
same with females as well. They'll say they do take a little bit of Anavar and they feel amazing on it. They'll
mm,
always want
yep,
to kind of get back to that high and that kind of strength they were experiencing it as well.
mm.
So yeah, like it's just kind of.
I'll always,
I'll go on.
I was going to say, I always remember a story a lifter said to me. He goes, it's like Superman putting his cape on.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, and, and this person was taking a fair amount, and he goes, it's a really big cape.
yeah,
So why would I take it off?
yeah,
And he was talking about his own personal challenges and of what it's like when he does go on and off. And he was certainly a lot more considerate than others about it. But, he sort of drove home that psychology. And that was the first time for me it made sense all that time ago. I was like, oh, now I get it from I get what's going on psychologically for everyone. Is like you're right. Like you are wearing that cape, and depending on how big that cape is, and when it comes off, it's very different
Yeah,
experience.
definitely. Yeah, yeah. And I think like a lot of people find themselves in a mess, like men, especially when they do
Mm,
like take that cape off and they don't really know how to
mm,
navigate that kind of that dip. So they just kind of stay on these
yep.
high cycles for long term and equally find
Mm,
themselves in a bigger mess. Like months, like all the side effects, like with men, it's like it's not stuff that's gonna crop up in like a few months or a year or two from like running high levels of cycles. Like the side effects that are going to
mm,
appear in like 10, 15, 20 years time. Like if you're just running stupid
mm.
amounts of like say tren, for example, like you're going to be
Yep.
getting like early onset of dementia in like your early 50s and 60s and things like that, and
Yeah.
heart problems
I
and
did see there was a study that went out recently, was it? Well, I saw at least saw it shared recently. Went around the Instagrams talking about that with trend use,
yeah, yeah.
and dementia kicking around. And I bet there's a lot of lads and even ladies potentially out there that may have not even bothered to read that one, or even when they do read it, not consider that because it is so far away for them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it just goes back to the point where, like I mentioned about just listening to people who know. Like, I don't say. I mean, you have to have a chemist, like a biochemistry degree, to listen to someone, but just get advice of someone
Mm,
who at least knows the fundamentals of what's going on, and like
mm,
because there's far too many people who are just like, oh, here, take nandrolone and just run this for 16 weeks or 20 weeks, and it's like, well,
yep.
yeah, you're going to get a result off it, but it's not the safest way. And then people are like, oh, I got a really good result off this amount, so I'll just take more of it next time. And then they'll be like, next time, like, oh, I
Mm,
got a result off it this, and then keep just piling it up and up, and not ever really take a step
mm.
back and think like, all right, I'm taking like nearly 2 grams a week here. It's not sustainable for the long term. Yeah, like it's just like,
Because Because lack of a better word, like if it is a space you're going to go down, it needs to be as considered as much as your training does, right? And treated exactly the same as if you were
yeah,
train
definitely, yeah, and
as your
like
training.
you can periodize it alongside your training. Like you periodize your
Mm,
training, you periodize nutrition to go alongside that training. So periodize your
yep,
PED usage to kind of work alongside it as well. And it always should be
yep,
the absolute pinnacle on top. It's not something you bring in
mm,
at the bottom and then you work your
yep,
training and nutrition around it. It should be like the missing link to where you want to get to with your training. And like
mm,
in the ebook, I kind of like go over it with like especially females who are thinking, being like, if you've dedicated like 3 to 5 years like of covering every avenue possible that you can think of, and you think to get to where you want to be, PDs are the missing link, then it's like, okay, maybe you've got like a use case for it there, but
yep,
these aren't like the going to open the gates and answer all your prayers of getting strong
mm,
and give you the
yep,
strength that you want. They don't work like that, and
mm,
a lot of men are still in the dark ages of it as well. It's not just like females
mm,
are kind of stuck a bit back because if we're talking about evidence based usage, there
mm,
isn't a lot of studies in terms of females like around like we've got like Primobola and Masteron, which were originally breast cancer treatment. So yeah, there is studies around
yep,
females and them, but a lot of the other stuff,
yep,
not so much. So a lot of it is
mm,
anecdotal, but even with men, we're just
yep,
kind of making it up as we go along as well, based on what little studies we have.
yep, yep. Yeah, I think you touched on the thing that I always like to talk about as well, and it's the fact that like where it sits in the system, like all the other things you should really tick off first and get right in your training, your nutrition, and time in the game and experience level, and then maybe consider your reason for why you would use it, and then thinking about long term. That should be at the end of the thing, right? Not at the start of it.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and even like the environment you introduce these compounds to, like
Mm,
you could be in like you could have like the training could be there and your nutrition could be there, but if like your stress management isn't ticked off, it
yeah.
like if you bring in these compounds in a
Yep.
high stress environment, they're just going to kind of
Mm,
favour more those unwanted side effects, or
mm,
like if your nutrition's really bad and you've kind of got a lot of
mm,
inflammation like around your stomach and a lot of blood flow is being
yep.
directed to that area, the hormone's just going
Yep.
to go where the blood flow is being directed to. So if you've got all this kind of intra-abdominal inflammation, that's exactly where it's going to, which
Mm,
is going to be no good there. And so you could take
Mm-hmm.
like what the same person and have them in this really sympathetic state, and they've just like say for example you've just been kicked out the missus' apartment and they're on a mate's sofa.
Yep.
That's probably not the best time to bring in PEDs into your environment because you're not in the right
It's
frame of
probably
mind.
everyone's favorite time to use it, bro.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, a lot of
I'm
people
gonna get
probably like,
fucking jacked.
yeah, exactly, yeah, a lot of people probably will say, yeah, it's the best time to do it. I'm just going to focus on the gym, but in terms of a stress-free environment, it's the exact opposite of what you
Yep.
want. We've still that same person and put
Mm-hmm.
them on the opposite end of the spectrum, they'll have a completely different response. I've seen that a lot with a lot of the even of high level athletes where they've kind of taken a U-turn and got all the health markers in a really good
Yep.
situation, come like opposite to what they did have, and
Yep.
they're on the
Yep.
fraction of what they were using, and they're setting all-time strength just
Yep.
because the body's utilizing it in a more efficient and
Yep.
dismantling it in a better way to get more out of it,
Mm.
essentially.
Yeah. Could you touch a bit more on that stress aspect of it, like that external stress? Because that's certainly something I haven't heard talked a lot about of before.
Yeah, so like a lot of people misunderstand like what stress is, and they think like there's different buckets of like stressors. Like you've got like your work stress and gym stress and life stress, but your body
Mm.
just sees stress as one big thing. Like if you're getting stressed
Mm.
from work, you go to the gym and lift heavy, you just putting more stress on your body, and these compounds are going
Mm.
to drive up that. In terms of strength, they're going to drive up that kind of stress potentially as well because they all work in a very similar way. In terms of strength, just kind of increasing that neurological drive to increase just like CNS and sympathetic states and
Mm.
increase muscle contractility. So if you're kind of in a really sympathetic state to begin with, and you start chucking more compounds in, that's just going to tip more easily, kind of tip the scale a bit more, and you're just kind of going to start
Mm.
favouring like the more side effects that lead from stress. So it probably just drive up
Mm.
systemic stress, more systemic, easier
Yep.
driving up systemic fatigue a lot easier as well. Because like
Yep.
a lot of like
Yep.
in terms of like strength training, if you're peaking for a comp, the biggest part of it is just fatigue management really, and stress
Mm.
management outside of
Absolutely.
training. So you want to be kind of favouring ticking all those, but like bringing stress management as like a main thing outside the gym to really be getting the
Mm.
most out of these compounds. Or you're just kind of going to find
Yep.
yourself in this balance of like a really unfavourable balance of how these compounds are being like utilizing the body essentially, if that makes sense.
Yep. Yeah, man, I think that's genius. Absolutely. And that, that comes down to that big message of, just looking at everything that's going on training related, not just in the gym, but outside of it that can potentially have an impact on things. And there can be some superpowers of just doing some stuff of stress management, whether that's looking externally, so outside of the four walls of the gym, or internally, and doing better at that can get you better results and get you, and like you were saying, but even better out of your PED use as well.
Yeah, and if we think about like what the stress response actually is, like
Mm.
stress itself is a good thing as well. Like it's how we adapt to training and
Mm.
getting stronger. So acute levels of
Yep.
stress is good. It's the chronic levels of stress which are
Mm.
detrimental to like performance. And if you think like when you get stressed, like there's like a basic kind of
Mm.
overview of it is like your body releases a load of glycogen and fatty acids because they go, I'm in a stressful situation, fight or flight. I need to do something. If
Yep.
you're in that constant state, your body's not utilizing nutrients and things as well as it should be. You can't
Mm.
rest and digest or rest and recover in that kind of state. So if you're in that high sympathetic drive, like you said, yeah, you're just not going
Yep.
to be using those hormones and metabolizing them in a way that's going to benefit you the most.
Mm. Yeah, and changing gears a little bit, something I always think is an interesting chat as well is what do you find the biggest misconceptions between male PD use and female PD use?
Um, I think it's mainly just what works for men works for females as well, and it
Mm.
really isn't like for one, in terms of endocrinology, the two
Yep.
completely different systems. But just to go back a step, I think one of the biggest misconceptions is say telling a female that testosterone is a male hormone when it's not. Females very much need testosterone
Mm-hmm.
fit from a physiological perspective. So
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of how females produce testosterone, it's primarily producing the adrenals, where in men
Mm.
it's producing the testicles. So just that kind of
Yep.
difference of how, like, if a man takes any exogenous hormone, it shuts them down. Females, it's not going to have
Mm.
that same kind of response. But um, obviously, the biggest risk with females is viralization when it comes to hormone use, whereas males, it's a lot more things like, well, there's not really any priority order of the risk, but it's like liver health, kidney health, brain
Yep.
health, heart health, cardiovascular health.
Yep.
So how you approach that kind of exposure um, with females, very much looking at, like, well, for a female, if they want to consent to that risk, they have to kind of draw that line of what level of femininity are they willing to risk. If because
Mm.
the number one thing that any female on any, like, androgen's going to experience is faster hair growth that's already there. So leg hair might start
Yep.
growing faster, armpit hair might start growing faster, and as you kind of
Yep.
increase that androgenic load, you'll start maybe
Mm-hmm.
starting having to pluck chin hairs, or your voice starts cracking, and like clitoral size
Yep.
starts growing, things like that. So they have to kind of think like, what am I willing to accept in terms of side effects? And a
Yep.
majority of females will say, I don't want to risk any of that. So that really
Yep.
dictates what you can kind of deploy for them, and the dosages and cycle lengths. But
Yep.
if you've got some girl who's like kind of elite level athlete and like, I don't care what, I just go all in with it, and it's like, right, as
Mm.
long as you accept that risk, then
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, I think it is just kind of determining the risk profile of what both male and female get into.
Yep.
It is very different.
Yep. And that must be, and that but by the sounds of it, that should be one of the first conversations that anyone's either having with themselves or with someone like yourself, is that consideration of risk profile
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah.
before they get in that path, right?
And I think with females as well, if no birth control is in use, they are menstruating monthly. Yeah, I think it is
Yep.
key to protect that menstrual cycle as much as possible, because a menstrual
Yep.
cycle is like the pinnacle of female health. It's like being able to carry a child is like peak female health. It's what
Mm.
physiologically females are like born to do.
Yep.
Not saying that everyone has to have kids, but it's just in terms of what the menstrual
Yep.
cycle means is a
Mm.
pinnacle of health. So you see like a lot of like female bodybuilders, when they're in that kind of really deep deficit, the menstrual cycle
Yep.
disappears because the stress of dieting
Mm.
is too much for it. But on the flip
Yep.
side, throwing too many androgens into it will shut it down as well. So like females do
Yep.
get that element of
Yep.
shutdown in terms of reproductive system, not the same level, not the same way
Yep.
men do, but yeah, it's kind of one, I think, key thing that we should kind of be aiming to protect as much as possible until you get into
Mm.
females who are wanting to kind of run those higher risk cycles, and they're like, no, I'm fine with,
Yep.
well, I say fine, but I'm okay with putting it at risk for X amount of time.
Yep. Yep.
Whereas men, we can't really say the same with men of wanting to protect the reproductive system. Like, there's things like
Mm.
HCG which keep it ticking over a little bit, but
Yep.
there's always going to be shut down there as soon as you bring any exogenous hormone into it.
Mm. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And part of this management, once people jump on on the PEDs, it's definitely going to be blood work, and lots of questions about stress and stuff like that. How often are you suggesting people should be investigating and staying across that? And any other tests out there that you think are super important? Because I think I've seen you post and talk around things outside of blood work that you could be testing medically for to manage all your indicators.
Yeah, so for, well, I think with females, but more so men as well, who are running higher doses, I think blood pressure multiple times a week, 3 times a week, is the first line of kind of support, because as soon as that uptick of blood pressure starts coming in, like
Mm.
if we go into, like, say, what we should be doing in off season of like a health kind of phase, getting blood pressure down
Mm.
to as healthy range as possible. And I always kind of like to say, like, in like
Yep.
the 120s over 60s, 70s is where I like mine to
Yep.
sit, or where I advise people to kind of aim for. Um,
Yep.
you understand that as soon as you start putting that higher risk cycle in, there is going to be a small uptick in it, and
Mm.
then is that kind of, you kind of monitor it, start when that starts creeping up. I kind of
Yep.
I don't think it's like an exact science, but when it starts kind of creeping up over like the high 130s into the 140s, it's like right, we should be. It's
Yep.
kind of triggered something. Then we should be kind of like trying to pull it back a bit. So I think there
Yep.
is like a
Yep.
very, in terms of strength, there's like a very fine line for like powerlifting, where
Mm.
a little rise in blood pressure can be beneficial for from a performance aspect because the blood can
Yep.
get pushed around your body faster and get pushed into muscles faster. But
Mm.
then, like I said, there's a very fine line where if it creeps up, you can just risk
Mm.
hypertension kind of levels then as well. So, like I said, there's no
Yep.
exact science to it, but then from that, yeah, it's like blood tests. So
Yep.
for someone who's just starting out, both male and female, I recommend starting and doing a blood test 6 weeks after, because it takes around 4 weeks for your blood serum to saturate with the dose you're taking. Um,
Mm.
you can kind of see any side effects cropping up in that time as well in 4 to 6 weeks. So get that first
Yep.
blood test after
Yep.
6 weeks just to see where everything's sitting, and then you can adjust from there. Depending on
Yep.
the ester of, like, say, for example, testosterone you're taking, if it's like a cypionate, enanthate, any dosage adjustment takes around 4 weeks to kind of set in. So a lot of people don't understand that if they're messing around with doses, like changing them weekly, you just kind of fluctuating these doses, but the serum levels aren't kind of getting to a stable level with them.
Mm.
Um, so after that 6 weeks one, then you kind of go to a 3 month one, and
Yep.
um, and then I usually just advise like twice a year at that point. Um,
Mm.
a full blood panel at least once a year to check like
Yep.
liver markers, kidney markers, um, cholesterol, things like that.
Yep.
Twice a year ideally, but when money starts coming into a question, then. But then if equally as
Mm.
well, like I've spoke to people who want to start and the excuse for not getting blood tests is just, oh, they're too expensive. But then that's my answer to that
Mm.
is, if you're not willing to put the money in for blood tests, then you can't afford to run PEDs. Really, like it should be the number one thing you should be covering is like the health side of things, like health, not just blood
Mm.
tests, but like any sub health supplements to support and mitigate
Yep.
risks, and like buying a blood pressure monitor, which are cheaper as anything. There should be no
Yep.
excuse of buying a blood pressure monitor at least.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that very statement there. If you can't afford to do those things that manage it and look after it, you can't afford maybe not to do them.
Exactly, yeah, yeah.
Um,
Because just purely from the risk you put in your body, I think so many people just underestimate what it is you're actually doing. Like when you start leading to health risks of like left ventricular hypertrophy of the heart, it's like that's
yep.
serious things of like thickening of the wall, like the left ventricle thickening of the wall, and that changes the whole dynamics of how your heart beat. And it's kind of a
Yep.
scenario you really don't find yourself in. Like there is, it does thicken as just from part of natural strength training. It's like an adaptive way for the heart to adapt to like strength training. But when we're putting PEDs on top of that, we're just speeding up that process of it thickening and getting to a point where it is going to be detrimental to your health.
Yep.
So yeah, so that kind of stuff can get monitored through like echocardiograms. So
Yep.
like outside of blood tests, yeah, get like a, if you're doing a lot of high risk cycles, and yeah, kind of keep on top of that once or twice a year.
Yep.
So again, these health risks aren't going to be something that are going to affect you in like the next few months or the next year or two. It's going to be later on in life, and your priorities might change in like the next 10. No one knows what they're going to be doing next 10 to 15 years, especially people in their early
Absolutely.
20s. Like no 21, 22 year old has all the ducks in a row with life, and what they're doing
Absolutely.
then, early 30s, could be completely different.
Yeah, yeah. I think the way I've been thinking about, because I saw you. That was the post I was talking about. As you talking about the heart health and getting that echocardiogram and getting that stuff done. So that sort of triggered me to thinking, like, you like you said, you don't know what you're going to be like when you're 50 if you started at 20 and bashed out 30 years of it or whatever it was. But I'm pretty sure one thing everyone would agree on is you don't want to be the guy girl at 50 that goes, I wish I didn't
Yeah,
do X, and start being like, oh, I've only got 5 years left, or you're on the way down significantly for all your health stuff. You definitely, everyone can easily agree they don't want to be that.
yeah, definitely, yeah, yeah. And like just going back to the point, like if you're not willing to put that time into all your health bits, then yeah, you can't afford to run these stupid cycles. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, like, it just comes down to that really. Like your health should be the one priority. And like there has been a big shift in that. Like a lot of people are starting to think that way. Like if you go back 5 to 10 years, and people weren't considering these things at all. But I think at the same time, 10 years ago, there wasn't access to like the
Yeah.
private blood test that we have and everything. Like it is a lot more. There's a lot more ways to kind of get blood tests and stay on top of those health markers now, which is obviously beneficial. And there's a lot more of this information being put out there now. Like 10 years ago, there wasn't social media being used in the same way it is now. Like Instagram was kind of up and coming really. Like it wasn't as big as
Yeah.
it is
Yeah.
now for information, and it was mainly still on forums back then. So there has been a
Yeah.
big shift in how that information is being delivered now, as well, which is probably the main kind of like point, like tipping point with it, where people are starting to think more long term health with it.
Yeah. I think that's super exciting to see. I mean, that's one of the many cool things that come with this bigger internet that we all get to be a part of. Is like people like yourself and everyone else out there gets a better platform to talk about things and put information out there for everyone. The next thing, how important is having a conversation with your own personal doctor as a part of this process, do you think, as well? Because there is, like you said, there is space now where you can get blood tests and stuff online without including a GP inside the process. But do you think there's still a place where they still should be considered as a part of all this?
So do you mean talking to like your own personal
Yeah,
GP?
just chatting to your doctor and keeping them in the loop. So you know when if you do have health challenges, they're already across everything that's happening, or you can use them simply to help you get some blood work done or anything else you want.
I think that's a tough one really, because I know in the UK, if I went to my GP at the NHS and told them I've been
Yep.
taking anabolic steroids, they'd put on my medical record that they literally write down that I abuse anabolic steroids. Um, and that would be on my medical record for life. So anytime I went to say I had a completely unrelated health issue to it,
Yep.
they would take one look at that and probably would just not help me in that regard because I've used
Yep.
recreational drugs in their eyes. So I think in terms of like even I don't know how it is in other countries, but like the NHS in terms of even just TRT is very
Yep.
very behind the times.
Yep.
Um, I don't know anyone who's successfully got it. Like people have, but
Yep.
if you're looking at it from a like TRT, if you say you're a powerlifter, you're an athlete, and you wanted to go on TRT for health reasons, you probably wouldn't be in any much more optimal position with an
Yep.
NHS TRT protocol than if you were to go to a private clinic.
Yep.
So in terms of TRT, like I always recommend in the UK anyway to go private clinic for TRT, and like that's how I started with my TRT 4 or 5 years ago.
Yep.
The doctors there are a lot more knowledgeable because it is more their kind of
Yeah.
area with TRT, and a lot of them are more up to date with more modern practices for TRT
Yep.
as well, which was good to see. Because I know in the
Yep.
NHS that isn't so much the case. But
Yep.
again, if you were to approach them for more like anabolic steroid use, they
Mm.
probably would still frown upon it a little bit
Yep.
in terms
Yep.
of that. So yeah, in terms of like I know in America as well with like TRT clinics, you can get like things like Anavar prescribed and Nandrolone prescribed as well. So it is a lot more.
Wow.
I wouldn't say more open out there, but you can get a lot more prescribed as part of your
Yep.
TRT out there. So yeah, in terms of like GPs, I think a lot of them are. I wouldn't say behind the times, but aren't up to date with what literature is out there for
Yep.
it. But then, like we mentioned the studies earlier on about like evidence based studies, and there isn't like a lot of the stuff we're doing is like anecdotal as well. Like we don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Like we've got studies of like the things like studies that like TRT studies that span. There is one study that spans 10 years. And it's looking specifically at cardiovascular health on TRT, and it
Yep.
concludes that TRT levels is I don't want to say the word safe because it's never safe, but low risk for
Yep.
cardiovascular disease at
Yep.
TRT levels. So we know we've got data for that within the long term.
Yep.
There's been studies of running testosterone up to 600 milligrams as well. So whether these doctors are really like staying up to date with these studies, I don't know. But I know, like, there's a lot of like more public pages on, like, say, Instagram, and like a lot of it on YouTube now who are kind of pushing this information out. So there is access to that information. But in terms of going to your own personal GP, I still think we're quite a way off being able to do that in a
Yep.
lot of places.
Do you think that'll change? Because obviously there's more people using it and stuff. That there's more studies, like you said, coming out. But if we were just talking at TRT level, that it's not maybe potentially as dangerous as everyone talks about or thinks it is. Do you ever see that space sort of changing at all?
Well, I was thinking about this the other day actually, because now we've got the like enhanced Olympics coming
Yeah,
now.
because
Kind of
that's where I was
open the
going to
door.
go. Because if that's something that really takes off, like there's going to be a lot of people that have been like, well, they get to do it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think like in terms of like the enhanced Olympics, like it's going to be interesting to see what new levels of strength come about, because obviously we all know the Olympics isn't 100% clean, so how it's going to differ is yet to be seen. But yeah, in terms of seeing athletes openly competing while taking PEDs, I think it's going to open a lot of doors to a lot of things, and maybe that kind of stigma and taboo subject with around it, and maybe more doctors are going to kind of step in to be like, because obviously, like you said, a lot more people are going to be looking at it now. It's going to be in much more of a public eye. It's still very much kind of just like brushed under the carpet with athletes who are using. So
Yep.
kind of setting a stage for people to go out there and really kind of show what humans are capable of when you kind of just
Yeah.
open the gates to PD usage. And yeah, maybe there will be a big change in that dynamic.
Yeah, I think it'd be an interesting space in say 5-10 years from now to have this conversation again to see what kind of effect that will have, and even with that we can already see there's a lot more conversation and a lot more happening in that area as well, right?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I think, like I said, over the next 10 years or so, I think there is going to be a huge change with it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean that tweak of human performance. I mean that's what excites me. Like, are we going to see someone run an 8-second 100 meters?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people have said for ages, like, just
Yeah,
showing what the human body is physically capable of if you just
yeah,
really open up and like
yeah,
expose them to that. So yeah, we'll just see hopefully see whole new levels of feats of like
yeah.
speed and strength come about. Yeah.
What happens if they run slower though?
I was like, yeah, nothing changes. Yeah.
That's what I always have a giggle about. I mean, I'm sure it's some result that they're obviously tested and stuff, etc. And surely whatever they are using, if they are using it, doesn't have that big effect on them.
Yeah.
Hang on, that's my sorry. My little daughter's
Oh,
having a snack. But what happens if the 100 meters turns into 10 seconds?
yeah. There's going to be some interesting conversations then.
Yeah, I find that always a funny one. That's for sure. Now, brother man, I'm going to hit you with 10 questions because it looks like it's about breakfast time for my family now. Completely random, out of absolutely nowhere. These 10 come, and they are to be done very quickly. The first thing that popped into your brain, and that is, what is your favorite food? Takeaway food.
That's pizza. Simple, yeah.
Very, very good. Favorite way to celebrate a win?
Celebrate a win. Just go out for a meal, a decent meal somewhere.
Have some pizza.
Yeah.
What city are you born in?
Morecambe, England.
Nice. Your dream car?
Nissan GTR.
Oh, there we go. Your nickname, sir?
Big H.
Big H. If you can ask your future self, Big H, what would it be? Any question, what would you ask yourself?
Where does the next 10 years of what I'm doing take me? Like where you are now? Yeah.
You want to be able to look into the time machine and see the
Yeah.
future. Have you ever experienced a life-changing event?
Yeah. I guess when I started with my ex about 4 years ago, kind of spurred this whole kind of journey really, because I was at
Yep.
the bottom again, and I was like, right, let's get to work and get back to it. And
Yep.
from that, at that point, I can kind of pinpoint that's the point where I kind of got to where I am now, really. Yeah.
Yep. Fuck, love it, man. Your favorite word to say?
Favorite word to say?
Yep.
Um, that's a tough one. Probably just like fuck off.
I like that one. Use that one often. Your favorite photo? What is your favorite photo?
Any photo of my dog.
What kind of dog?
I've got a black Labrador. You can kind of probably see him just behind, behind
I
me.
love it. Shout out. What's his name?
Donnie.
Donnie. I like it. And your big adventure for 2024, what's it going to be this year? Where would you like to go?
A big event.
Adventure.
What I'm probably looking forward to is Irish Pro competition in August over in Ireland.
Nice.
It's the biggest comp I've got lined up this year, so yes, looking forward to working towards that.
Hell yeah. Well, Mr. Harrison, man, I absolutely appreciate you coming on in this later Sunday evening for you. Most important thing is, where do people find you? How do they contact you if they're interested to find out more about what you're doing, the MST crew is all about?
Yeah, so my Instagram is harrysquatter_. It's the easiest way to find me and reach me, message me on there.
Yep.
Or find me through the MST Systems page. I'm tagged in quite a lot on there as well.
Yep.
And just get in touch with MST Systems. If anyone wants to chat with me, they can direct you to me as well.
Amazing, mate. I think anyone playing in that space needs to follow you. You need to see what you're doing if they're not already, and absolutely have a chat if they're not chatting to anybody. Mate, appreciate you coming on. I think we won't be waiting 10 years to have the next podcast to see how it all unfolded, but we'll talk again soon, my friend. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me on.